What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another price guide, this time for vintage Kenner mint on card items. Kind of a strange batch this time. All Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi mint on card sales. I believe I might have a couple of Power of the Force related items and also a Palatoy Tri-Logo, but no early card backs here, and some good prices and some that kind of surprised me on the upper end of the scale, but you know, none of these were absolutely gem mint perfect, but there were some pretty good prices as a result of that. So I thought we would just kind of dig into them. The first one is a 21 back Empire Strikes Back transition card, Luke Farm Boy. Wow, that's a pretty important item here. So this is a transition card where, again, the first 21 figures appeared on this card back. None of the Empire Strikes Back characters appeared on this card back. The secret Star Wars action figure is the mail away Bausch promotion. This card back was pretty beat up though. You can see a lot of creases all through the card. It's beautiful, beautiful blister. Look how beat up the card is, yet the blister looks pristine. So you know, you never know what you're going to get when you're looking on eBay, but the price reflected a pretty good condition item though. So this one sold for $642. Blonde haired Luke Farm Boy. What a beauty. You know, again, if this was a 21 back transition card where the card was not so mangled, I think you could probably pretty easily double that price. $1,200 to $1,500 is probably about would easily hit that number. But a very nice card back, and certainly a tough one to find with these transition cards. This Zuckus I thought was a fantastic deal. It was a clear blister 48 back Revenge of the Jedi offer. It was unpunched. It did have the Toys R Us price sticker on it, but look at that blister. It's beautiful, crystal clear. It looks to be in great shape overall. Just a little bit of wear around the hang tab up there. That is still unpunched, but for $300, that's a great deal. I mean, look at the back of the card here. And I've got like goldfish. I've been eating my kids' goldfish, so I'm like, my mouth is full of them. It's like glue once you get it in your mouth. So if I'm kind of fighting it off here as I speak, that's what's going on there, is that I'm eating goldfish. But look how clean that card back is. Really clean. It's just a little bit of wear on the hang tab, and obviously that ugly Toys R Us price sticker, but that should easily grade an 80, I would think, depending on the grader. But $380, that's a pretty good deal. I mean, AFA 80 clear blister Zuckus on the 48 back, you're probably, I'd say $800 to $900 minimum. So to get that one for $380, that's a good sign that maybe the market's weakening a little bit. On the other end of the spectrum, maybe not, because I've got some Yodas here that sold. This was the 77 back brown snake. It was a yellowed blister, but not too bad. You know, it's still fairly clear. The card back itself was in great shape. Fred Meyer, anybody remember Fred Meyer stores? That's got the Fred Meyer sticker and it's punched, but that card back was super clean overall. Would probably easily grade a yellowed 80. That one sold for $635. So again, if that was a clear blister, $1,200 to $1,500 all day long. But I think that was a pretty fantastic deal for a very slightly yellowed blister, 77 back Yoda brown snake. Here was another one. This was a 65 back A, also the brown snake. Now, I don't know if this seller was updating the photos, but it is a well-known seller. This seller has lots of really good vintage Kenner items, and I bought from him in the past, so I know that the seller's legit, but it says one available, one sold. So I don't know if the one that's for sale or the one that's sold is this one that's in this amazing condition here, but it was unpunched, no price sticker, just really great shape overall, very lightly yellowed. It was listed for $1,000, $20 shipping. And again, it says one, and maybe it could be an accident. Maybe he accidentally put the quantity of 2 instead of 1. But at least right now, one of them has sold for $1,000 plus $20 shipping. I'm guessing it's what I just said there, that where he accidentally put in a quantity of 2, and so now the eBay listing hasn't been taken down since one of them has sold. But who knows? But it is a legit seller. I've definitely bought from that seller before and had good experiences. Now I've got a quartet. I've got 4 different mint on card Vaders that sold all within the last day or so. This was a 41 back A Vader with the survival kit offer. It was graded AFA 75, and it was listed as a clear blister, but on the label, but you can see very clearly that the blister's starting to yellow a little bit. And I think that will probably happen more and more often the older we get. I just feel like that these blisters, it's really tough to keep them clear, even though this is an Empire Strikes Back blister. It just seems like it's kind of inevitable at some point that they're all going to kind of turn yellow. So it sold for $576. I think that price is very, very fair. I know of an AFA 80 example that sold for $1,300. That was a clear blister AFA 80. So to get a 75, very slightly yellowed blister for $576, that's a bargain price in my mind. Here's another one the same seller had. This was an unpunched example, and this one was, it looked to me anyway, a true clear blister 65 back A, archival case, AFA 80, 75, 85, 85 were the sub scores. How often do you find a 65 back Return of the Jedi card, unpunched Vader with that's still clear? It just never ever happens. And that one sold for $731. I actually think that price is really good. I mean, I know it's a later card back, but it's a clear blister 65 back A, and I think it's worth every penny of that price of $731. Same seller also had this one. This was the 77 back A, and it had slightly yellowed since grading. It was graded AFA 85, straight 85 for the sub scores, but that is about as clean as it gets for a 77 back. And I know it has yellowed since grading, but it's very minimal and it presents very, very nicely. And of course, the price reflected that. It sold for $1,002 plus $11 shipping. Now you take that and then you go over to this one. This was an AFA 85 79 back A Vader, and look how terrible these photos are. I mean, this is a note to any seller out there. You can't take photos like this where you just kind of hold it up in your hand and it's not even showing the whole card. It was a slightly yellowed, or a fairly moderately yellowed blister, but it was advertised as a 79 back A Vader, AFA 85, 85, 85, 90 were the sub scores. But I just think if he had gotten a $20 light box and taken nice, crisp, clear photos of this thing, he probably could have gotten even more than what he did. He got $603 for it. Is it market price? Probably. That's probably about as good as you're going to get. So maybe my advice isn't really needed when you have something this high grade. But I just think that you're doing yourself a disservice as an eBay seller if you don't take some really crisp, clear photos of something, especially on the AFA 85 Vader. I mean, I would definitely improve my photo taking on that one. Here was a 77 back Hammerhead. I think this was a Hong Kong. If you look at the backs of the cards, a lot of these Return of the Jedi Cantina creatures were made in Spain, but this one, as you can see here, very clearly was made in Hong Kong. But more on that in a second, because I do have a Spanish example coming up. So this was the Hong Kong, and the blister wasn't too bad, really. I mean, it did have a ding on the top of it, and I think that's what held the price down. But in terms of yellowing, it's not terrible. It was unpunched with no price sticker. It was listed for $390 with the best offer accepted. I did not look up the final sales price on that one, so I apologize before I started filming. But it was a beautiful example of the Hammerhead. This is one I've got in my collection. I think it's the same card back too. It is graded CIS 85, and I paid. It was already graded when I bought it, but I think I paid about $250 for mine. So probably, that was a while ago. So I think that's, if I had to guess, this one probably sold around $300. Next up was a Han Solo. This one surprised me on the upper end. I thought this was a little high to me. It was unpunched, and the card and the blister and everything looked fine, but it was very, very yellowed. I mean, I've talked about this on the channel at length before, that once these blisters yellow like this, they turn into brittle pieces of candy. I mean, you can break this blister so easily just in shipping, and I would just be terrified about sending something like this, especially these Return of the Jedi card backs where they don't have the inner tray holding the figure in. This one, for example, this Han Hoth, that figure is going to bounce all up and down inside the case during shipping, and I just would be terrified of this thing actually making it to me safely. But the price surprised me. It was $365 plus $8 shipping. That seems a little high to me, just given the condition of the blister. But, again, the card back itself was beautiful, unpunched, great condition. And, if you can live with some yellowing, I guess that's kind of the going rate for a very high-grade Han on a Return of the Jedi card. Here was one that was in my what to buy video. It did not last long. It actually sold, I assume, to one of my Patreon supporters, since as soon as it aired, they get my videos 24 hours early, and it sold immediately. So I'm assuming one of them bought it, maybe not, but this was a very nice example of the etched blister ATST driver on the Palatoy cardback for $170 free shipping. That was a bargain. That was an absolute bargain in my mind. I would have paid that all day long, given the condition of that blister. Next up was a beautiful Canadian example of the 65 back Nikto. And I've talked about this before in the past, but when the blister's yellow on these Niktos for the Return of the Jedi card backs, it's actually okay, because it kind of blends in to a certain extent with the card art, right? you know, the card art features a lot of sand in the background, and this one is very yellowed, but it does kind of blend a little bit better and makes the aesthetics, the presentation of it, much better than it probably really is. But it's got the Emperor offer on there, and this is the Canadian card back, as you can see on the back. La Guerre des Étoiles. So this is the French release, or the French Canadian release for Nikto. Beautiful example. Again, it was yellowed, but it was unpunched, and the card was in just immaculate condition. That sold for $250 plus $20 shipping. Next up, this was an interesting one. This was Bausch 65 back, and it was a clear blister. Look how clear that blister is. But unfortunately, it did have some creasing right above Bausch's head there on the right-hand side. So I was curious to see what this would sell for. It also had some damage around the hang tab, as you can see. But it is so difficult to find a clear blister Bausch. It's just almost impossible on these U.S. Kenner card backs. And I was curious to see what it would sell for, because it had a clear blister, but it did have a lot of card damage, or, you know, a mild amount of card damage. Probably at best a 75, I would say. But it sold for $265, $10.85 shipping. I think that's a really great price, just given that it's a clear blister, if you can live with some of that card damage. Next up was a Han Solo on a 65 back A U.S. Kenner card. Return of the Jedi. A lot of U.S. Return of the Jedi card backs for sale right now. And I don't know if it's like a sign that collectors maybe who are not really focused on collecting vintage Star Wars stuff, they're like, the market's kind of, you know, at a peak right now and starting to maybe drop a little bit. Maybe now's a good time to kind of divest myself of some of my unwanted mint-on cards. But this one did have a yellow blister. It still sold for $449.99, free shipping. Now, going back to what I was talking about with that Hammerhead, this is a made in Spain for the U.S. market Snaggletooth. And it's a very common error that is included on this one. So this Snaggletooth was packed in with a Bespin blaster instead of like the DL44 blaster that Han gets packed with. That's what he's normally packed with, but for whatever reason, the Spanish market, or the Spanish PvP factory, always seemed to pack him with this Bespin blaster. It's a very, very common kind of factory error. And you know, the blister did have some dings to it. It had a Kmart sticker on the back, but the backs of these made in Spain for the U.S. market, they're kind of muted. It's almost like the Lily Letty for the U.S. market card backs. They have a very kind of matte finish to the back. And then in the bottom here, it does say figures made in Hong Kong. That's definitely not the case. I would be really shocked if this is a U.S. card, or a Hong Kong card back. And what gives it away is, number one, that error. But number two is the back of the card back has that matte finish that's very common for the Spanish factory. So I'm about 99% positive that this is a Spanish card back, and it's appropriately labeled as such on in the auction title. So this one sold at auction for $229.50 plus $10 shipping. Pretty good deal, I think, for a made in Spain Snaggletooth. I got a Power of the Force one-man sand skimmer. We just documented one that was graded that sold for crazy money, like $800 or $900. This one was ungraded. It was listed for $599.95. I forgot again to look up the sales price on that, but this blister is actually not too bad. Some of these blisters get very, very yellowed. This one you can at least see the actual toy inside, which is kind of a rarity for some of these mini rigs on the Power of the Force card back. But $599.95 and best offer was accepted. And then we got an AFA 80 Plus Power of the Force card back for Han Trenchcoat. That sold for 1,000 big ones, $1,000 plus $11.70 shipping. Here's the label on that one. Obviously, it's yellowed, straight 80, 80, 90 for the sub scores, but beautiful example of the 92 back Power of the Force Han Trenchcoat. That's a very desirable one. It always goes for big money. I got a couple of these KB Toys Overstock 2-packs that I wanted to finish the video off with. This one had Chief Chirpa and Chewbacca. That one sold for $1,000. These Overstock KB Toys 2-packs were not packed with weapons. They were just kind of thrown in bins, so they're always beat up. They have very plain card backs, basically blank card backs. But when they're fully sealed, which is pretty rare, when they're still fully sealed, they go for big money. And this one did go for big money. And this one also sold for a lot of money, apparently. I don't know what the best offer was, but it was listed for $15.50, and it had Vader packed with Bib Fortuna. Anytime it's packed with Vader or Princess Leia or one of the main heroes or villains, it's going to be big money. So this one was listed for $1549.99, and it did sell. Best offer accepted. So pretty big price on that one. But there were some good deals to be had. So you just got to keep an eye out there. And if you're not terribly picky about condition, I showed you a number of examples in this video where if you can live with some of the defects on some of these card backs, you can still get some great prices right now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.